everybody. Welcome to the December Database Security Office Hours. I'm your host, The Grinch, and I'm happy to be here. No, I'm not happy to be here. What am I talking about? My name is Richard Evans. I'm a product manager of Oracle Database Security, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Mr. Russ Lowenthal. So, thank you, Russ, for joining us for the last one of the year.
Thanks for having me back, Rich. I haven't got a chance to do this in a while, and these are
Oh,
always so much fun.
yeah, these are great. I love doing these. If you've not joined us before, welcome. This is your session that we hold on the second Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know any other time zones than those three. But every session has a technical topic, which Russ will lead today. We've got some announcements and then the opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session, hopefully. Or if you've got something, drop it in the Q&A and we'll see if there's a good spot to take it, or maybe I can answer it as we go. So 1700 CET as well. So thanks for joining us in Central Europe. Appreciate it. So the announcements today. I've got a GitHub page where I try to put some of the notes and comments and things we talk about today. I will drop those in the Zoom chat right now. Just kind of a cheat sheet of what we talk about, links and notes, and we've been doing that for a few years. So you'll see several months worth of presentation notes out there. So out there for you. Every month we talk about patching. Patches come out every quarter. Next patches will be released on or around the 20th of January, 2026. Pretty crazy to talk about 2026. So please stay on top of those patches for your database, your operating system, your network, your application. Um, they are critical to stay on top of because once something is identified, that's when attackers go, hey, wait a second, that's how they do that. And you see a rise in exploits of that. And actually, I just saw one of those today that I think AWS was talking about there was a rise in these type of attacks stuff. So yeah, it fits. So please check out oracle.com/security-alerts for patches, patch release cycles. Check out Fleet Patching and Provisioning if you're using Oracle Real Application Clusters, RAC, to help you with that. And then Mike Dietrich is kind of the source of information when it comes to patching and upgrades. Check out Mike's blog at mikedietrichde.com. Okay. We started or restarted our series for our customers in the Asia Pacific region. For some reason, folks in Australia didn't want to join us at 2 a.m. their time. I don't know why. I mean, look at this. Look at this. But we've got a new series. Our colleague Manoj is going to lead that. That is going to be on the third Wednesday of every month. So a week after this event. So you could share it with your colleagues. Say, hey, we've got some colleagues in India or Australia, Japan, and they'd benefit from this. So Manoj leads that. 10 a.m. IST. The next one is next Wednesday, the 17th of December. The month is going by quick. Um, we've got some upcoming capabilities that we're kind of excited about, but we're not ready to talk about quite yet. Um, our product manager, Roger, is asking for customers who are working on IT, AI, not IT, working on AI and working on AI agents or applications, and those agents are talking to the Oracle database. So if you're doing that and you're looking for kind of row level or column level security for those end users, those agents and the end users that are accessing the data from that agents, reach out to Roger. I'll drop his email in the chat here as well. Some neat things. We kind of like to get your feedback, understand how you're using these capabilities today, what you'd like to do with the Oracle database, and we'd love to have that conversation with you. Okay? Same thing goes for Audit and Database Firewall. Our product manager, Nazia, would like to hear about, how you're using, how you're collecting audit data, what your challenges are for collecting that audit data, assessing the security of those Oracle databases, anywhere from, two databases to 20,000 databases. She's working on a next generation release of AVDF. So if you're interested in a sneak peek, you want to kind of provide some feedback and work with Nazia on these capabilities, she'd love to hear from you. And again, I'll drop her email there in the chat as well. Okay. All right, Santa Russ, I'm going to turn this over to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Rich. Um, I wondered why you'd ask for that picture. I was hoping it was for your Christmas card. Uh, Hi, everyone. And again, thanks for letting me come back on. I haven't had a chance to do office hours in a while. And this is really probably one of the best things we get to do as a product manager is to get on and meet a bunch of people. So, uh, very, very nice to be back, especially with a topic like this one. So what I want to do is I want to review kind of what happened in 2025, but I'm going to cheat just a little bit and talk about something in 2026. And the reason I'm going to justify this is that last week's big news was a very small update to a My Oracle support note 742060.1. And I apologize in advance. I haven't switched over to the new numbering system. So I think that's like P News 1306 or something. The new MOS has different notes. You can still find it though. But anyway, in this very, very long note, buried deep down in a table number 2, is this line that you'll see outlined in red. Oracle Database 26AI will be available for generic Linux platforms, not just on Exadata, not just on Oracle Database Appliance, not just in the cloud. It'll be available for all Linux clients, starting with the January release update. And then, as always, once the year progresses, we'll be rolling out other platforms. So Windows will be next. AI, other platforms will continue throughout the year. But for most of us, Linux is the kind of the home where we live. January's release update. Very much looking forward. Now, what that means is all of these new features, which were new with 23 AI, suddenly become available to a lot more of us. And I want to very quickly hit some of the highlights of those features. I would spend the whole hour just talking about them, but just hit the highlights of them. The first one is SQL Firewall. This was a big new deal with 23 AI, continues 26 AI. I just realized I got to go in and change my little icon there. But the idea behind SQL Firewall is we move into the database the capability to examine incoming connections and incoming SQL and look for things that don't make sense, where there's an anomaly. If it is a user coming from an IP address they don't normally come from, or using a program they don't usually do, or executing SQL that they don't normally execute, then the SQL Firewall can either block that action or it can alert on it, record of a violation. This is really, really important for combating SQL injection and plays a big part in combating the risk of stolen login credentials. Now, you may say this sounds really familiar because Database Firewall has been doing this since 2008. And that's true. But Database Firewall is a different object. The Database Firewall works outside of the Oracle database. It's on a different server. And unlike SQL Firewall, which is in the database and only in the 26AI database, Database Firewall is Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, DB2 site. It works for a lot of different things. There's advantages and disadvantages. We will continue with both Database Firewall and SQL Firewall. And no, we didn't create SQL Firewall to have something new to sell to you. SQL Firewall is included with Audit Vault and Database Firewall because the functionality is very similar. It is also included as part of Oracle Database Vault because the looking for anomalies in how users connect, wrong program, wrong IP address, that's something we've always thought of Database Vault as doing as well. So if you have either of these, Database Vault or Audit Vault Database Firewall, you have SQL Firewall. And if you're not already on 26AI, then hopefully in January, you'll be able to take advantage of it. There was a lot of other stuff we introduced in 26AI, IAM authentication and intra-ID authentication. Both of these were backported to 19C. Longer passwords. 26AI supports passwords up to 1024 bytes. This one could not be backported. We added in new schema privileges to 26AI. This was one of the things that people requested for years. We had before 26AI, before 23AI, we had object privileges. I could grant select on a table, and we had system privileges. I could grant select any table. Now what we have is the capability to scope a system privilege to a schema. I can grant select any table on the HR schema to a user, or on the OE schema. Update, insert, all of these can be handled at the schema level, which really simplifies things for those of us that have very dynamic applications where schema objects are constantly being added and removed. We added read-only users to 26AI, and this is a big one. We talked a lot about it throughout the year. We added in a change in the 23.6 release update for data redaction that removed many of the restrictions that we used to have. Prior to 23.6, you couldn't use redaction for queries that had a group by or a select distinct or some, any of the aggregation functions. There were just a lot of things it didn't work with, and it really limited your ability to use data redaction. Since we've made this change, the uptick in use of redaction has really been amazing. It's getting a lot more people using it because it's a lot more useful. But I do want to take the opportunity to point out there's one thing, because we're starting to see this come up. We designed data redaction primarily to do redacting data in static reports. In other words, not where people can go in and change a lot of things, certainly not where things are going to be written back to the database like an application screen, and to prevent the wholesale export. Like I want to select everything into a CSV file or dump everything into an Excel spreadsheet or something. The wholesale export of data through a SQL connection out to another outside of the database. Data redaction does not do anything, and it's not designed to do anything from someone who can just keep hammering the database with query after query after query. That is, they can do whatever they want. They can create their own queries. And the reason is, if I may not let you see my salary, but with a data redaction policy. But if you say select star from the employees table where salary is less than 15, or where salary is less than 10, or where salary is less than 5, oh no, where salary is less than 9, you can eventually get down to my salary just through inference, inferring the values. This is the type of attack that data redaction is not designed to stop. So it's good that it's more useful. I'm very, very happy to see a feature that we worked so hard on getting out the door, getting all this extra press, but keep in mind the use cases it's designed for. We didn't stop there, though. In 26AI, we updated the default encryption algorithm for tablespace encryption to AES 256. We changed the cipher mode for our implementation. It used to be cipher feedback. It is now ciphertext stealing, XTS, which even though it sounds worse, XTS is actually better than cipher feedback. We changed it for column encryption. Not that very many people use column encryption. That used to be cipher block chaining. Now it is Galois counter mode, GCM. Both of these are much more respected in the cryptography community. Both of them play a part in a topic I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. We kind of no longer do business with the Russian Federation. There's some political reasons for that. And so we removed our support for the Russian Federation ghost algorithm. South Korea, where we definitely still do business, has de-supported their seed algorithm. And so we de-supported that as well. We do continue to support ARIA. Okay, so improvements to encryption at rest. We also made some improvements to DBMS crypto. And this can be a big one depending on who you're working with. We added in support for the mandatory Chinese algorithms, SM2, SM3, and SM4. If you are, the X is not visible. Oh, if you are, thanks, Manoj. Too far to go back. Hopefully you heard what I said about what wasn't working for redaction though. If you are working with custom encryption programs and your market is in China, there is a government requirement to use algorithms that the Chinese government has verified as being secure. Kind of like if you're working with the US government, there's a requirement to use algorithms that are FIPS validated. So those algorithms, SM2, SM3, and SM4, are now built into DBMS crypto with 26AI. We also added support for transport layer security version 1.3. This is a replacement for version 1.2. This is an extremely popular new feature. Most of us are trying to get off of TLS 1.2 and get onto TLS 1.3. We added that capability with the initial release of 23AI. So, a couple of years ago. At the same time, we gave you the capability to make using TLS easier, especially for your clients. Here's what we did. Almost any workstation or server has a default certificate store. There's one place where you put certificates on Windows, there's another on Linux, another on AIX. Those certificate stores are now used by default by an Oracle client. So if you're trying to connect to a database using TLS, and this is a very important and if the certificate that was issued to the database server is issued by a certificate authority that is in the trust store of your default certificate store. I'll give you an example. If you're using an autonomous database from OCI, those certificates are issued by DigiKey. DigiKey is a well-known certificate authority. Almost every default certificate store has DigiKey's root cert in there, which means you can make a TLS connection to autonomous database without having to add that certificate to your wallet. This is where it goes. If you're on premises and you're working inside your own organization, there's a really good chance that your workstation certificate store has your organization certificates authority in it. Okay, it naturally would, so you can work internally. Database will do the same thing. We simplified FIPS configuration. I'd mentioned that earlier to make sure that you're using cryptography that's US government approved. That used to take 3 different parameters to configure. It's down to 1 now. A single parameter configures everything for network encryption, for DBMS crypto, and for TDE. We made a big change to auditing, a couple of them. One of them is we added in the ability to do column-specific audit policies, okay? So if you're looking at the employee table, I don't care if you get my name and my email address, maybe what department I work in. But if you're going to pull back my social security number or my last performance review or something like that, I want to make sure I audit that. You can do that with audit policies in 26AI. And this one's really big. We finally de-supported unified audit. Unified audit, which we introduced over a decade ago. Oh my gosh, it's 13 years ago now, which we introduced 13 years ago when we released 12C, is now the default auditing mechanism in 26AI. All changes and new policies have to use unified audit. If you upgrade, which hopefully a lot of you are going to be doing starting in January, if you upgrade a 19C database that is using that legacy audit facility, and to be clear, that legacy audit facility is from Oracle 7. That's when I started work at Oracle. That's so old. It's when I started work at Oracle, okay? If you are upgrading something still using 26-year-old technology to the new version of the database, that old audit facility will continue to work, will continue to record the audit records, but we won't let you change those audit policies. All you can do is no audit them, remove them. Okay. So again, legacy audit is out, unified audit finally is in. Okay. Whoosh. So all of that is stuff, most of it's been around since 2023. This was released with 23AI. Now let's talk about what's new this year. These are all things that changed in 2025. Spoiler alert, other than the fact that 26AI is going to be released on premises in January, everything I'm going to talk about, if you're a regular attendant of Rich's office hours, you've heard about this throughout the year. But let's just review quickly. For authentication, this one is near and dear to my heart because it's one of the features I own. In the July release update, we added in multi-factor authentication support for local database user accounts. Here's how this works. I go to log into a database. I give it my username. I give it my password. The database checks that and says, oh, this user is configured for multi-factor authentication. The database makes a call to the authentication provider. That could be our own OCI IAM, or it could be Cisco Duo. These are the two we support right now. That service queries its own authenticator app, which you need to have on your desktop or on your mobile device or something like that. It pops up a little window saying, hey, Russ wants to access this database, allow or deny. You click allow. The authenticator app sends that back to the multi-factor authentication service, which sends that back to the database. And to the user, it looks like you've been waiting all this time because you've gone to log in, you've given it your username and password, and it's just sitting there waiting. The authentication request completes, and you're logged into the database. Now, here's the beauty of this. We've supported multi-factor authentication forever, right? I mean, again, all the way back to Oracle 7, we supported multi-factor authentication. But it was always done externally, and it always required a lot of additional setup on both the client and the server. This is purely server configuration. No changes to the client other than your users have to have their mobile authenticator, okay? So what that means is, I don't care if you're using Toad, I don't care if you're using SQL CL, I don't care if it's SQL Developer. This works with anything that's trying to connect to the database using a password. And you configure it on a user-by-user basis. So you can have some users using multi-factor authentication, others not. It is a great new feature. Whoosh. Thank you, Rich, for putting the blog in there. Still more. This one is so new, it hasn't made it into a release update yet. Many of us authenticate to our database using a certificate. In some cases, that could be an application or some type of service account that has a wallet and it's authenticating that way. That's been around for a long time. But more commonly, when it's a person, a human actor, it's a smart card. Your badge for your company, and that'll have a certificate embedded in that. And if you're with the Department of Defense, this could be your common access card. If you're with one of the other U.S. government agencies, this could be your PIV card. If you are in oil and gas, this could be a Schlumberger smart card. There's a lot of people out there that are using smart cards for authentication to get into their workstation, to get into their building. You can use those to get into the database. Now, here's the challenge. What happens if you lose your badge? That happens. It happens way more than we like to admit. So you go to the badging office and they give you a new badge. Your old badge is still out there. Your old badge still has a certificate on it. The certificate on your old badge has not expired. Unless your database is configured to go out and look for a certificate revocation list, someplace where you can make an entry that says, oh, Johnny lost his badge. Don't trust this badge, trust this other badge, which is really hard to maintain and which really slows things down and complicates your architecture. Unless you're using a certificate revocation list, you now have two ways that someone could get into the database impersonating the person who lost their badge, the new badge and the old badge. Well, this was a problem for some of our security conscious customers. And so one of the government agencies we work with asked us to come up with a way to solve this. And we did this based upon the thumbprint of the certificate on the badge. The thumbprint is basically a hash of the public key embedded in that certificate. That changes with every new certificate. And so now you can continue to authenticate using a certificate just with subject name or subject alternative name if you want to. But you also have the opportunity to authenticate with thumbprint, as you can see on the bottom of the screen here. I have not gotten this into a release update yet. I'm hoping to do that early next year, not in January, but maybe the April or July release update. But if you are using certificate-based authentication, you might want to take a look at this ER you see on the screen. You can request a merge patch and do it as a one-off for now if you want to. Whoosh, continuing on. Okay, encryption. Here's another big one. Most of us are still using TLS 1.2. Some of us are using TLS 1.3, but most of us are still using TLS 1.2. Regardless of whether you're using TLS 1.2 or TLS 1.3, the key exchange mechanism for almost all TLS connections is using ECDH, elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman ephemeral, ECDHE, ECDHE. Um, the challenge with this is, while it is almost impossible to break ECDHE using normal computers, it is theoretically possible to break using a quantum computer of sufficient strength. Now, quantum computers of sufficient strength aren't really available yet. But what we see happening out there on the bad guys is we're going to go ahead and collect encrypted data off the network now and store it with the expectation that sometime in the future we'll be able to decrypt it. This is a harvest now, decrypt later attack. This is, it may sound out there, but we know that there are people doing this, primarily nation states. And so if you are sending sensitive traffic over the network, which your database most certainly is, then you need to be worried about this type of attack. Beginning with the October 2025 release update, we added in support for TLS 1.3. So this is only 26 AI, okay? Because October is when it became 26 AI, so it wasn't even 23 AI. 26 AI configured for TLS 1.3, you can choose to use quantum safe module lattice key encapsulation mechanism, MLKEM. MLKEM is a NIST approved algorithm that is designed to not be breakable by quantum computing. Now, just a preview of something coming in January. In January, and this is the standard Oracle, anything I say, it may not be true. It could always get pulled out. But at least my plans as of right now is with the January release update, we will begin supporting hybrid key mechanism, a combination of MLKEM and ECDHE. For a lot of reasons you'll read about later, I've got a new blog coming out on this probably in January. This is really the holy grail here. But if you're worried about quantum protection, you have that now as long as you've applied the October release update. And this is a very important and turn the feature on in your SQLnet.aura. Okay, Rich, thank you for posting that blog in there. That'll talk about how to turn it on. Whoosh. DataSafe. Ton of changes throughout 2025 for DataSafe. We expanded its footprint, the places it can go. So now DataSafe pretty much works anywhere. It's included with all OCI database services. It's available on premises. It now works with Exascale. It's included for our multi-cloud databases. That's on Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud Platform. We even added in support for Active Data Guard, including in Amazon RDS. So DataSafe, if you've got an Oracle database, you can be using DataSafe for it now. And I didn't put it on here, but I should have. That does include Standard Edition. We get that question a lot. Around the middle of this year, we added in support for 2 new features that are designed to help you manage large groups of databases a little bit more efficiently. One of those is the idea of grouping databases together so that you can manage multiple databases as one. And you get to choose the criteria for that grouping. It can be your Pry 1, Pry 2, Pry 3 applications. It can be your applications that are SOX relevant or that are PCI relevant. It can be based upon, these are my Singapore applications. These are my Japanese applications. It's however you want to group them, right? It's very free form. The other thing we added in is the capability to use attribute sets. These are collections of things like database or operating system users, IP addresses, programs. And the idea is that you use these 2 features to help you manage security policies for those target groups. And it lets you consistently apply policies across large numbers of databases. Before this, you had to kind of do everything one database at a time. And yes, you could script it, and yes, you could use OCI, CLI. You could do all of that with the REST APIs and everything. But this lets you do it a little bit more easily through the UI. Okay. Now, you can do things like setting a consistent audit retention policy across your database group, or applying security assessment templates across your database groups, or checking compliance at the group level rather than at the entire fleet level or individual database level. A lot of different things you can do, you now do it at group level. And we intend, as we move into 2026, I'm sure Rich will have Bettina Schäumer on multiple times throughout the year. We intend to continue adding more policy management in there. Lots more things that you'll be able to do in the coming year. Other things we've done, you can customize your security assessment reports. You can now report aggregate or detailed information. For user assessment, we added in the capability to monitor password expiration. Yes, I know we don't like to use password. We wish everyone was using multi-factor authentication, but it's still a challenge for many of us, especially when you get that application whose password expires and you've got to rush to get everything back up and running again. And don't forget, we have gradual database password roller. Okay. But user assessment, we added in group capabilities for sensitive data discovery. So if you want to say, go out and look for the, I don't know, the HR group of data, you can have all of that group together, or the finance group of data. You can create arbitrary groups of sensitive types of data and go search for those across your database groups. Speaking of sensitive data discovery, you know, I think we ship with over 150, I think the number might be 187 now, different types of data that we will look for when you're doing sensitive data discovery. But it wouldn't matter if we shipped with 1,000. I can almost guarantee you there would still be one type of sensitive data that's unique to your organization that we don't cover. And so for a long time, we've let you create your own sensitive data types in DataSafe. The challenge was you would create that in DataSafe, and then it's stuck there in DataSafe. You had no way to move that, say, from your development instance to your production instance or between regions or something like that. Earlier this year, we added in the capability to export user-defined sensitive data types and import them into another DataSafe. Again, just making it easier to use. Moving from DataSafe to Audit Vault and Database Firewall. Much like DataSafe, Audit Vault and Database Firewall has had a big year, and a lot of it follows the same types of enhancements. Okay, we've done things around usability, predefined policies, global sets of attributes. We've expanded the capability to monitor with Database Firewall, including local and bequeath connections. We've allowed you to apply policies at the set level. We've also made enhancements that make Audit Vault and Database Firewall easier to use. All right. Automatic restart of an agent if it fails for some reason. Integration with single sign-on. Auditing the console, the Audit Vault and Database Firewall console itself, the ability to import and export policies. All of these in Audit Vault and Database Firewall. We've expanded the platform. Support for 26AI, expanded the support for Autonomous, added in support for Exascale. Unlike DataSafe, which is Oracle database only, Audit Vault and Database Firewall is heterogeneous. And so all of these other databases continue to rev new versions. And so we continue to add support for them throughout the year. Our goal with Audit Vault and Database Firewall is to move it from activity monitoring to being a single security console. The way we kind of think about it internally here at Oracle is, if you want to use a cloud service, use DataSafe. If you don't want to use a cloud service, use Audit Vault. The functionality is very similar across the two of them. Here's what Audit Vault does now. Audit collection, Database Firewall, and SQL Firewall for monitoring and blocking SQL injection, checking trusted path. Security assessment, sensitive data discovery and user assessment, all right? And policy management. Just like we're making DataSafe do policy management, we're doing more and more policy management, and that'll continue throughout next year with Audit Vault and Database Firewall. Again, this is going to be your security control center. It's your alternative to DataSafe. If you're an existing Audit Vault and Database Firewall customer, you get all of this stuff, you know, as we make the improvements as always, okay? Now, I think it's a requirement. Every Oracle presentation has to use this acronym. I don't think I've used it up until now, so apologies for that. But don't fire me, Larry. Gen AI. Okay, I've said it now, so we're good. But seriously, AI plays a huge role in the security world, both as a threat. I mean, we see a lot about Gen AI as a threat, but also as an enabler and a force multiplier for those of us that are trying to keep our data safe from the bad guys. And so we are adding in Gen AI-powered security advisors and alert policy assistants to Audit Vault and Database Firewall. And you should see that relatively early in 2026. Speaking of that, and Rich, I didn't realize you had this in yours. The product manager for Audit Vault and Database Firewall also reached out to me. She is working on the capabilities that they're going to add in over the next couple of years for Audit Vault and Database Firewall. If you're using more than 2 database security solutions and you are facing challenges in working at scale, working at speed with those, we would love to hear about those challenges and get your input on what we should be doing to try and make things better for you. You can see her information on screen here, and Rich also put it in chat. But Nazia Zaidi, wonderful lady. She's been the product manager for Audit Vault and Database Firewall for a while. She really drives this product to get better and better with every, not just with every release, but with every release update. So please reach out to her if you've got suggestions or if you're willing to talk a little bit about the challenges you're facing. Whoosh, still more to come. Key Vault also has grown in 2025. We added in, well, we expanded. In 2024, we saw Key Vault begin to work with SSH key governance. This was a huge new area for Key Vault and kind of a gray area that a lot of us had sort of forgotten about. SSH keys, certainly for me, I do a lot of work in OCI, and every single server I go to, I'm using an SSH key. Key Vault will now handle storing and online usage of those SSH keys, so they don't have to be either in my workstation or on my server sitting out there in OCI or my VM sitting out in OCI. But up until recently being around I think it was February when this came out, 21.10, that would only work on Linux. Well, we added support for Windows workstations because a lot of us use Windows workstations to connect to even our Linux servers. That really increased the user base for Key Vault, and we've seen a huge uptick in the consumption of this feature. We added in implementation accelerators, and the first one we did was for DBMS Crypto. Remember I talked about DBMS Crypto a little bit earlier and how we'd added support for the mandatory Chinese algorithms to it with 23AI, now in 26AI. A lot more people using DBMS Crypto to do custom stuff. But the challenge with DBMS Crypto has always been, and this goes way back even to Oracle 8 when it was the obfuscation toolkit, has always been that these PL/SQL approaches to encryption didn't include key management. You had to kind of do that on your own. Well, this integration accelerator for OKV handles your key management for DBMS Crypto. So you just plug a little piece into your code for DBMS Crypto, and now your encryption and decryption keys can be managed online outside of the database, not being stored with the encrypted data in the database securely, the same way you do for your TDE keys. Okay. Other things that we've done, we've integrated Key Vault into the provisioning workflow for autonomous and Exadata cloud services. That makes it easier to use. You know, it's funny. When we began our OCI journey years ago, there was kind of this thought that people in OCI would always want to use a cloud service for key management. And that's where OCI Vault came from. And the initial rollout of autonomous and Exadata cloud services really focused on OCI Vault. But what we found is there were some people, actually a quite large number of people, who really didn't want their keys in the cloud service. They wanted to maintain control of their keys. And that's why, you know, this ability to use Key Vault with autonomous and Exadata cloud service is so important. So you've been able to do this for a while, but it was always, okay, first you configure your service and then you go back and add it in later on. Now you can use Key Vault from the very beginning, and that makes it just a lot easier to do. Speaking of easier to use, we added in better support for databases that move between OKV clusters. For any of you that are worried about ransomware and looking at clean room support, where you have an OKV cluster that is for your online databases and then another OKV cluster in your clean room, this feature really adds in or makes that easier to set up. And this was always just a pain point for me. Every time I wanted to update my OKV endpoints, and yes, I know you theoretically don't have to update your OKV endpoint just because you updated OKV, but I'm used to patching. I had to bounce my database. Now I don't have to do that anymore. So really nice new feature there. We're getting close to the end, I promise, Rich. I know I'm running a little bit over here. For data masking and subsetting, this didn't really happen in 2025. It was a sneaky little release at the end of December in 2024. I think it was actually December 21st when we released Enterprise Manager 24 AI. So I'm counting that as a 2025 release, even though it theoretically happened in 2024. When we released Enterprise Manager 24 AI, that meant we had a new version, the first new version in many years, of data masking and subsetting. So if you have upgraded to 2025 to EM24 AI, you have this new release of EM, which really easier to use, better workflows, better screens, things like that. But we didn't stop there. As you update your plugins for the Oracle database, that's where the data masking comes from, is when you update your plugins. Throughout the year, we've continued to make improvements to it. One of the things that we did is we took that huge library of sensitive data types that we've built for DataSafe and Audit Vault, and we moved that into Enterprise Manager data masking and subsetting. So I was right, it was 187, or at least that's what it was. I think we did this in March, if I remember right. You now have 187 different sensitive data types. To put that in perspective, 1 month earlier, before this update, I think you had 21. So this is, I mean, it's a really significant, no, it's a really significant increase in the number of sensitive data types that we look for. We added country-specific identifiers for a bunch of places because PII is a big deal pretty much anywhere. And we've organized things into different categories to make it easier to work with. Just like we expanded our sensitive types, we added in new masking formats, which now gives us 66 built-in formats, again, approaching parity with DataSafe and Audit Vault and Database Firewall. Okay, but we didn't stop there. We wanted to make it easier to create your masking templates. And so when you create a masking template in Enterprise Manager 24 AI, if you stayed up to date on your plugins, you can now assign a default masking format to a sensitive data type, so that when you add a column that you've declared as being sensitive to your masking template, you can say it's automatically going to come in and say, okay, this is a credit card number. I want to mask it this way, or this is an email address. The default way to mask email addresses is that. You don't have to stick with the defaults, but hopefully we did a good job of picking our defaults, and it'll make you able to use them most of the time and make your ability to bring on new databases much quicker. Small thing, but it can be kind of important. Masking is a huge, huge thing. It's not a very quick thing. I mean, it takes a while to do. And if you're going out and you're making changes to hundreds of columns and terabytes of data, the last thing you want to do is to fire off a job and have it fail, and then you have to start it over again. So we added in a new pre-masking check that takes a look at the target database, decide is it properly configured for a masking job? Does it have enough temp space, or the rollback segment's going to handle it? Things like that. These reduce the chance of a failure when executing a masking job. And almost as important, if you do get a failure in a masking job, now you can resume the job, start it. You can go in and pick the step you want to start resuming from. So whatever failed, you fix it. You can go in and say, just continue on from there. Whew. And that, my friends, is 2025. Again, if you've joined Rich every month for office hours, there's nothing I said you didn't already know about, but maybe you missed one. You're caught up now. And I look forward to seeing you in 2026.
Yeah.
Rich, back over to you, sir.
Thanks. Are you saying if we do this in 2026, they don't have to come to the other 11 months? They can just come to your recap in December?
Oh, no.
Is that what's going to
Oh, no, I
happen?
just hit the highlights. I just hit the
Oh, okay. All
highlight.
right. All right. All right. I like that. All right. Let's hit the highlights. All right.
Yeah.
I tried to post the links in the Zoom chat. I tried to keep up with Russ.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna also put these on the GitHub page as well. I've got a lot of them there, but I think there were some that I didn't have. I will get those added. I'll put this in here as well. We'd encourage you to go out to live labs. One of the labs we'd probably suggest you start with is the Data Safe Fundamentals Lab. That's a really good one. Like Russ said, there's lots of great new capabilities in Data Safe. These labs touch on just a little bit of them, but there's so much more that you can dive into there. Look back at our previous 11 months, and actually you can go back like 5 years on our asktom.oracle.com page. And then we got the ebook, and we're actually working on a update to this ebook here that we expect to have out in the first half of next year. It's going to talk about that AI stuff as well, right? Russ, do you want to show us your shirt, sir? I don't know that all of the lovely viewers have seen your
Well,
the S in AI stands for security.
the S in Gen AI stands for security.
Wait a second, there isn't an S.
There you go.
All right. So, um, the next session will be on in January of 2026 on Wednesday the 14th. So we get a little bit later in the year, which is nice. Topic is to be determined. We'll take some ideas. We've got some other things in the pot too. But as always, if you have suggestions, please email us. Let us know. Just a reminder that Manoj is hosting the APAC version of this session next Wednesday. So your colleagues in Australia, Japan, India can catch this where Manoj leads that session. And we'll get the recordings up on asktom.oracle.com here in the next week or so.